So, part two, Russ, welcome back. Anyone who doesn't know about part one, please go and watch it. It's about wills and everything you need to know about your wills and why it is so important. And Russ is from RJC Wills. Did I get that right? Tongue tie.
Yep.
And we go back many, many moons, and I can't recommend him enough for his services because I just feel like everyone needs to know a Russ in their life, quite frankly. So part two, we are talking about trusts and everything trust related. So for me, when I was introduced to Russ, it was important that we had an up-to-date will, power of attorney, and then I didn't really know much about trust, but was like introduced, I suppose, to how a trust would benefit our situation that we were in and how that would work. So I'm going to hand over to you for a second, if that's okay, and you can tell me everything about trusts and what they are.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Keely. Yeah, I mean, as a will writer, I work with two different types of trusts. We have will trusts that get written into your will, and they become active upon death when the will activates. And more recently, and giving more protection and peace of mind, we also provide lifetime discretionary trusts, also known as sort of asset protection or family trusts. So I'll start on will trusts. The most common sort of will trust, I suppose, is a couple that own their home as joint tenants. I don't know, yeah, Mr. Mrs., two children. A simple will, Mr. dies, leaves it all to Mrs. Then when Mrs. dies, it hopefully goes to the kids. But we have concerns like remarriage, or even possible care fees. If the survivor requires care, what happens to the estate? So with a couple, my normal advice, they own the home as joint tenants. We set them up wills. We include a protective trust. And what that trust does is captures their half of the home upon first death. So if Mr. dies, his half of the home is safeguarded and secured. The wife lives on. And I suppose if the wife remarried, or if this wife was to go into residential care, they can't touch the half that's been held on trust from first death. You're not trying to beat the system, because as a parent, you have every right to make sure your children get your share of the home, and that is all you're doing. So that is a very common form of protection. That's probably the most common form of will trust that I will do on a daily, weekly basis.
Okay.
For a single person, the time I'll sort of use will trusts is when it's normally mainly on the home, when you want to leave the property to certain people, but you want to provide a home for somebody else for a period of time. So I had a rich divorcee, had a younger partner. She had grown-up children. There wasn't a lot of difference in the age. So she didn't want the sons kicking him out, effectively, the partner. So she included a right to occupy. I think it gave him 2 years to live in the property. And after 2 years, it went down to the sons. So they're not for everybody, but they are really quite good when the need arises. So they're really the two will trusts that I provide on a regular basis.
Yeah. So for me, my understanding and my explanation on trusts is like everything goes into a bubble, and that bubble then lives in the cloud. And that's in layman terms. I could be completely wrong, and tell me if I'm wrong. But yeah, when it's like, well, what is the trust? And I think, well, you've got your will, and then the trust just kind of like double secures the will, but adds in like the extra protection in like this little bubble, kind of keeping it in a bloodline. So, kind of there was a situation, I think, where a will had been left, but they didn't want it to go to another partner, except so it kind of keeps in bloodline, I think, doesn't it? And kind of goes down the path. And I think, sorry?
Gives you a bit of certainty as opposed
Yeah.
to standard wills a mere wish, whereas with the trusts, you're making sure it happens.
Is that AKA control? Control from the deathbed.
Yeah.
And I think what was really interesting about the trust side of it is that, there can be times in your life, and any one of us could become homeless. I could be a millionaire. It doesn't mean I can't become homeless for whatever reason. We don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And for me, somebody can inherit money, even if it's not loads of money. And I don't know, let's just say for that moment, they've got a newborn baby, they're on tax credits, maternity pay, whatever it may be. And if you inherit any money, it's not a gift over a certain amount. And that can just literally not ruin your life, because that's quite extreme, but in that moment, it can be a lot of problems and pressure. And what's quite nice, because this trust lives in the cloud, as I call it, you know, it's in a bank account and you can draw down on it. So it's something that you can dabble into. It's not that you then have to wait a long period of time, or, you know, kind of, it's accessible. There's rules you can put in place, like, you know, I don't know, let's just say it was left to a family of 4 kids, I don't know, and normally with siblings, there's usually issues. No one really that I know gets on with everybody their entire life. And you can have clauses in that protect it. So, you know, someone can't just go and take the money out, because I know that I've heard stories where, I don't know, Aunt Betty's passed away, and all of a sudden Uncle Fred's gone and bought himself a camper and going on holidays, and everyone's like, oh, well, where's he getting this money from? And, you know, he's kind of drawing down from Aunt Betty without anyone else. Whereas when it's in trust, you can have these kind of little perks put in, should we say, that kind of just give that extra protection.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
No, if you want complete and utter control, then you really want to be looking at a lifetime trust. So I sort of touched on will trusts a minute ago. That'll activate when you die. But I suppose if I'm seeing a single person and they're worried about, I don't know, children divorcing and a son-in-law or daughter-in-law running off with the estate or half the estate, they might have a child who's got a genuine need for benefits and relies on benefits to survive. Circumstances like that, an outright inheritance on your lap, you'd lose your benefits, you'd live off the inheritance, and when it's gone, benefits. So it's a bit pointless. So there are things you can do. We can look at holding shares in discretionary trusts, which protects that share for the individual without affecting their benefits. Again, if a child's going through a divorce, you can always update your will. We can look at a discretionary trust to protect that child's share so it doesn't suddenly dilute through the divorce. Lots of things.
I'm going to stop you whilst I've got this thought process in my head. So you've just said about divorce. So let's just say, because I don't know this, let's just say I'm going through a divorce, and obviously in the divorce, it gets all very messy and everyone's arguing about what they want and stuff. If I've got a bloodline trust, so I don't know what that's actually called. So I've got a trust, it's sat in the little cloud. And that's obviously in my name. Do I have to put that in the divorce? Or because that's a bloodline trust and because that's mine, do I need to include that?
Depend. I suppose if you were together when you set it up, potentially.
I mean, like, not if it wasn't my trust, as in, like, let's just say I was the beneficiary of a trust. So let's just say mum and dad have set up a trust, and me and my 4 siblings are in that trust as kind of beneficiaries. And let's just say I'm now going through a divorce. Does my husband or ex-husband have a right to any of that trust?
No, that's one of the main benefits of the trust. That's a lifetime discretionary trust. So as long as it's discretionary, it's at the discretion of the trustees. The beneficiaries are merely named as potential beneficiaries, so the trustees just hold that money back. Yeah.
Okay. So in theory, I could have like £1 million mansion estate jobby in this trust.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, to the husband. Okay. I'm not getting divorced, and I don't have 4 siblings, and I don't have £1 million trust, but I like the idea. There might be someone watching who can relate.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm just thinking outside the box. And is there any, so when I kind of was doing my research, like the tax implications, is there like tax benefits by having a trust?
Discretionary trusts do come with, or lifetime discretionary trusts do come with tax disadvantages, I suppose, over other types of trust, but it gives you ultimate control. So if, for example, it's only income that would start creating tax issues for a discretionary trust. So if I'm dealing with a couple that have put their house into trust now while they're alive and they live in it for the rest of their life, there is no income. So you do get, well, when a beneficiary takes out, there shouldn't be any charge when the capital is actually released. But providing the trust fund is less than the nil rate band, there'll be no ongoing or no tax charges at all. Provided they keep it within the tax-free allowance and it doesn't generate an income, there'll be no tax to pay.
Okay, I think I get that. I think, yeah, layman terms is best for me. Okay, and I don't know if I'm imagining it or whether we kind of had this conversation before we started like recording, but I was saying about literally having a conversation one day with a friend about wills, power of attorney, kind of, you know, trusts and everything about kind of, I mean, I think I've sent numerous people to you, like, you need a trust, get a trust, have this, get it sorted, like all of it. But I was having this conversation, and then literally the next day, or even that night, their father had a heart attack. And yeah, I don't think anything was really in place. Is it something you can kind of, is the word retrospect? Can you do it like going backwards? Like, I know obviously that's really, really messy, but what's the kind of situation on, you know, sorting yourself out after something's happened, like a heart attack or something, you know, that you're not really planning for, should we say?
It's a bit tricky because whether you're setting up a will or power of attorney, you have to have the capacity. And unfortunately, the gentleman we're discussing here, it's affected him. He's gone from the day you spoke to him to having the heart attack, and has been left quite severely sort of mentally impaired, and unable to give me his instructions. So I mean, we'll talk about lasting power of attorney later, but I wasn't able to do a will or power of attorney. So there were other things we could do for him, but it was a lot more technical. So unfortunately, when you get to near 60 odd years of age, you talk about it one day, and then that's just really bad luck, isn't it? But yeah, that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think really that story is more like, we can have it on a to-do list, but don't wait.
No,
don't wait. It's yeah, I think for me, I always thought that trusts were, well, I didn't know about them, to be fair, until about 8 years ago. But I do know that my nan worked until she was 75, and her biggest fear was just not having any control and not, you know, anything. And I think when I introduced her to you, and she kind of looked at the power of attorney and trusts and wills and everything, just made her feel a lot more at ease and a bit more in control. And I wish I knew you 50 years ago to like introduce you to my nan, because literally every single day it was just a constant concern for her. And then when, you know, I'd ask these questions all the time at Network, well, someone must know some way that you can do something, like, you know, to give this woman peace. And then yeah, we were kind of introduced. But I think the relief it gave was just huge. And I just think everyone should have a trust. And I think sometimes trusts are perceived as maybe, well, you don't need it because I don't really own a lot. You know, you don't have to have £1 million estate to have a trust, and it still be of massive benefit to you. Yeah, it's something that I haven't quite done myself, but is on my to-do list, and I'm sat here preaching. But it is I've done the other bits. I'm getting grown up, you know. I've got my will, got my power of attorney, got my life insurance. It's next on my list, because even though my assets aren't huge, the power of a trust is beyond words on a video recording that we're doing right now. Basically,
my advice is don't give something away, because once you give it away, you've lost control. You can't then spend it or use it. But the lifetime trust is the one exception where you can give something away to your trust that you set up. You retain control, so you can reverse it at any time. You can benefit from the assets, and know, unless you've got really bad health at the time of setting it up, that it's going to go down to the people you want it to. So if every generation in a family did the trust, you'd start building up some serious sort of wealth protection over the years. But you are limited, because the seriously wealthy people of the past, who are seriously wealthy now, have used and abused trusts. But nowadays we are limited individually in any 7-year period. We can only gift 325,000 into trust, without any tax liability. So you can hide £1 million, but it's going to take you 15 years by the time we've done a trust today, 1 in 7 years and another 7 years. So yeah, get it set up and just start planning now, really. You never know what's around the corner. And like with the gentleman you referred me to, you go all your life. If they just, people don't want to do it, but that's probably the biggest sort of example of don't mess up, don't let that happen to you, really. So
yeah, got an extra friend. Rolo's come to join us. He heard the word death and was like, "You're not going anywhere, mummy, it's fine."
Tough life.
Yeah, tough life. Okay, cool. So I suppose a bit like kind of the will side of it, if someone wanted to have a conversation about a trust,
Yep.
I will put all your details, and obviously anyone can reach out and have a conversation. That's free, I'm assuming.
Yep.
That you've never charged me.
No,
And I've had a
fine.
few. And from the point of obviously deciding that a trust might be for you or for them or whoever, what's the kind of, how does it work? What do you do? Like, what are the steps to put in place for a trust?
I generally go out.
Different variations.
Yeah, there's no pressure. I mean, I suppose it's whether I'm doing a will or a trust or I'm doing both, it's all part of go out, have a chat. If you're happy, proceed. We'll take the instruction. If not, have a think about it. I'll come back around again, gather the information. I do all the legwork and get everything produced, and then just, re-deliver, get it all signed, sealed and witnessed. And then, again, just any land registry work is just a case of waiting for down the line. But yeah, once it's all signed and sealed, that's pretty much everything done.
And although lots of things can kind of obviously come in and interrupt stuff, but give or take a broad spectrum of time wise, how long does it take to kind of from instruction to completion to come through?
Roughly a month.
Okay.
A month. Because they're barrister drafted, there's anti-money laundering checks and preparation of documents. So within a month we should turn it around.
And I guess the next dreaded question on everyone's, it's kind of, it's one of those things, isn't it? You don't have to give me like, I charge, that 99 pence and a flake on top, but in the sense of like a broad spectrum of the basics, from the basic kind of trust to like they're all singing, all dancing, what is that varying kind of cost?
Well, again, I'll start if I'm talking sort of wills and trusts. So if I was a single person with a single trust, it's probably about $399 in cost. If I'm dealing with a couple, so wills and a trust in each will to protect half the home, a combined fee is $750. And a lifetime trust, they are a lot more expensive. It's a lot more comprehensive. It's not something I can produce because I'm not a barrister, but for barrister produced trust deeds, including a conveyance of the property into the trust, for a single person would be 2,750, and for a couple would be 3,000. They're all inclusive fees. The only other fee on top is a land registry disbursement, which will range, I don't know, from between £40 and £200, depending on the value of your property.
Yeah. Okay.
And I suppose, people know that's a lot of money, but if you look care fees, you spend over £4,000 in 1 month just paying for a month's care fees. So yes, there's a cost to set it up. But again, one of the other benefits of the big trust, assets held in the trust don't require probate. So you don't have the delay and you don't have the cost of using professionals to administer the estate. So
okay. So let's just say my trust's up and running and hunky-dory now at the ripe age of 35, which feels too young. I know it's not, because it's on my list and it's happening regardless. I will have a trust. And I've got 2 children. So let's just say I'm on my own. I'm not with anyone. Let's just keep it really simple. So there's just me. I've got 2 children. I get to the ripe age of 85.
Yeah.
Which I'm thinking until I lose my faculties. And then my children decide that that's the time to put me in a home, which they're never going to do, because obviously they're just going to nurture me and love me at home forevermore. But let's just say I need to go into a care home, and my house is in the trust and everything else. What happens then? So the trust has been for years and years and years, and the will and trust is entwined with my 2 children. My care fees then come out of the trust?
No, no. Providing that trust was set up when you've had good health and you've not set it up specifically to avoid care fees.
I'm 35, Ross. I'm not going in a care home yet.
Exactly. So now would be an ideal time.
Yeah.
So yeah, if in 50 years' time you required care and you've set this trust up to leave to your children and make sure it stays in that line, they wouldn't be able to touch your property.
Okay. Whereas it feels like probably, well, it's an everyday story, isn't it? Like, you know, mum or dad have just used their entire life's money to pay for care. Because I think
a house is sold on average to pay for care fees.
And it eats it so fast. Like the fees are, I think one home was £1,500 a week.
Yeah.
And now if you work out, I don't know, the average home around here where we are is, I don't know, let's just say 250, 300,000. It's not going to take long to eat that, is it? And then you just think, why did I have a noose around my neck and slave to a mortgage for it to go in care fees? Like, I just, the mind boggles. I do wonder sometimes my worth having a house, but then if I can put it in trust now and protect it from my children, at least my children get my hard work and effort.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being eaten up. Okay. When are you free?
Penalise those that try harder. You know, the less you do, the more you're given. You're encouraged not to save because you lose the money you're given, and in later life they'll pay for it. So I'm very big on the certainty, and that's what you get with trusts. It makes it happen, black and white, more than just a wish.
Yeah, and that to me is like why I send everyone your way, because the government annoys most people. And then to take everything you've ever worked for just annoys me even more. So yeah, I'm a very, very big advocate of trusts and the work you do. And I know you've helped numerous people that I'm like, you just need to speak to him, just speak to him. And there's still lots more in the pipeline that I've like mentioned you to, that obviously you're on the list, but it's that list of you're forever moving down the bottom again, aren't you? And even in, you know, the instance of the client that I did refer, where literally we had the conversation and the next day or that night they had a heart attack. Like, you know, none of us know whether tomorrow's granted. Well, it's not granted, full stop, is it?
I don't know what's around the corner. You don't, and that you're better to. It's not a form of insurance. You're not insuring your telly or your washing machine. You just, if you've got family, just make it easy for them. It'll be bad enough when you die. If you leave them a mess to deal with, it just makes it harder, you know. So
here's a thought very quickly, and then we'll wrap it up, done and dusted, and we'll go on to part 3, power of attorney. I looked into burial or cremation because I know that was one of the questions within the wills that we did.
Yeah.
And in my head, I thought, well, I don't really want to be burned. So at least if it was a burial, there's somewhere for my kids to come and visit me or whatever. We had this kind of open conversation of, I asked my child, my eldest, you know, do you want somewhere that you can come and visit me in the ground and a headstone? Or do you want me to like be thrown somewhere and you just come and stand in a place and look up and think, hi, mum, you know? And we had that conversation, which was a bit weird and, you know, for 11-year-old to kind of take on. But when I looked into the cost of a burial, you need to buy your plot now. Now, this is a whole different conversation, but you need to buy your plot now. And that plot currently, as it stands, was £3,000. So let's just, and that's not even a headstone. So let's just say my wish was to be buried, and anyone listening, if you wish to be buried, it's a lot of money. So one, you need to sort that out now and not leave it to anybody else. But regardless of that, what's more important? Being put in the ground and not even having a headstone, or saving and securing every single thing you've worked your bloody arse off for to protect it and give it to your children, because it's the same cost. And when you weigh it up like that, it's mad, isn't it? Do you want a hole in the ground, or do you want to protect everything?
Kids are
for your like maximum cost of your like biggest, bestest thingy-mabobby, you know, it's still, And when you put it in relation to that, then it's not even questionable to me. But, you know, each to their own, everyone has their own thoughts and opinions. But yeah, for me, I'm a very big advocate, very, very passionate about trusts and stuff. So thank you. And I'll let you go and we'll go on to part 3.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks, Keely. See ya. Bye.